Hello everyone and welcome to a quick week 12 video. This is, as the sort of actions for this week states, there's not an exercise in relation to this, but more or less a quick little how-to in relation to the raster-based graphic aspect of this project. Project 4. Hopefully you've collected imagery you're going to use for this project, and I want to go over this specifically and then go over into Flash and work with a specific image to show you some possibilities in relation to that. Before I do that, I want to go over this. It's sort of a while I'm here kind of thing. So it says, for this project, you're combined visually and in the narrative sense a mixture of elements that are real, photographic imagery, and elements that are unreal, animated vector graphics. You should consider how these elements interact and react to each other. The photographs can and should do many things, including set the scene, introduce a character, reveal a portion of the narrative, and move the story along. They can also be incorporated with text, sound, and/or mass in order to take advantage of previous exercises and projects. So, in a nutshell, the idea here is that these things interact, that they react to each other, that a animated vector graphic is having to do something in the image that obviously sort of takes the image into account. I would definitely encourage things like sound, things that give sort of textural atmosphere to something. There's lots of free and easy things like wind and waves and all sorts of simple sound effects that can sort of be incorporated into a movie like this that will add depth to it. I'm going to read along here. Please keep in mind the idea of narrative. The idea is to tell a simple story that is both engaging and visually engaging both visually and conceptually. Make sure both aspects, vector-based and photographic, play an important role. It is often a useful tactic to acknowledge the real and unreal as a dilemma the movie is trying to unfold. So I have one example, and I'll post that. I'll post that this week, actually. Let's see here. One animated 30-second file. Many of you have been short on your files. It's pretty easy to figure out how long something is, whether you're simply timing it or whether you're just doing the math of 24 frames per second. You must contain at least 5 raster-based graphics. Raster means photographic images. These are images you have taken, not images off the internet. It's easy to tell. And vector-based animated graphics. You're going to make it a SWF, and this is due next week. Okay. With that said, I want to pop over to Flash and show you something. To get images into the library, you should know that it's pretty simple. Image, import to library. I have a simple JPEG here. It's an image of a tree. I'll make this a little bigger for you. And I'm going to use it, and I'm actually going to show you how you can convert it to a vector-based imagery while sort of keeping its sort of photographic nature the same. This is sort of similar to what we did with the bird JPEG from the movie clip exercise a while ago, but I'm going to sort of expand upon this. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a new symbol, and I'm going to call this tree, and I'm going to make this just a graphic. Okay, I've gone over here, and I'm going to take, this is my JPEG that I've brought into the library, and I'm just going to bring it in. Okay, you'll see that it's just a photograph. I can't really do much to this thing. It has the blue bounding box, and it's sort of strictly a standalone thing. Okay, what I'm going to do, and you'll see I'm inside tree here, is I'm going to modify and go to modify bitmap, trace bitmap. I believe we would have done this for the bird.jpg when we worked on that movie clip. This is a similar idea. What it's doing is it's taking areas of color and a minimum amount of pixels, and you can play around with this in order to sort of render this thing into a vector-based graphic. It's not going to lose it. It's going to lose some of its photographic quality, but not a ton of it. Before I do this, I'm going to zoom in and sort of show you. Okay, this is a photograph. Okay, you can see and hopefully know enough about sort of digital photography that we're starting to see pixels, and that's how that thing is sort of visually rendered. Okay, I'm going to zoom back out, and go to my modify bitmap trace bitmap. I'm just going to leave it at these defaults. You can play around with these. Essentially what you're doing is telling it to either render it more accurately or less accurately depending on what numbers you punch in here. Okay, so I'm going to hit OK. It's going to take a minute because this is a decent sized image. And when I pop over to it now, you'll see that it's more, and I'm going to zoom in. It's going to take a second. This is taking a second because there's more sort of information there. Now when I zoom in, you'll see that this is sort of rendered photographically. Okay, you might sort of change those numbers to get things either more or less accurate. Okay, now what I'm going to do is first and foremost, I'm going to duplicate this this symbol in the library. Okay, whoops, our tree. I'm going to call it tree 2, and you'll see why in a second. Okay, so I have tree 1, tree 2. On tree 1, I'm going to start clicking on these areas here. And these are now represented by basically a vector-based image. And I'm basically deleting the background. I'm going to sort of put it back in later. And I don't have to be horribly accurate about it. And you'll sort of realize in a second what I'm doing. I'm basically going to create two different versions of this tree image that make a composite so that I can create some kind of not 3D, but create a sort of indication of a three-dimensionality. Okay, so I have tree. And I have tree 2. Okay, tree 2 is basically the image with the background. Okay, they're basically in the same spot, so we should be able to sort of place one on top of the other. Okay, what I also have is a movie clip. Sorry, it's just called ball, and it's just a ball. I don't know, little eyeballs, so we can sort of see that something is moving. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop over here. And here I'm going to put a layer called tree. Okay. And I'm going to put another layer called tree 2. Okay. And I'm going to put another layer called ball. Okay. Now, in a minute, I'm going to sort of lay this out, and I'm going to tell you why I did this. I'm going to lay this out in a way that I have this tree, which has no background, on top of this tree, which has a background, and I'm going to place my rotating, ball in between them. Okay, and this is going to sort of hopefully create a bit of three-dimensional space. Okay, so I'm going to actually stop here the video for a second, just because it's going to take me a minute to set up this stuff and sort of explain what it is that I've done. Okay, I've laid these layers down, and what I've done is I've brought in both of the tree graphics. Okay, I've put tree on the tree layer. Okay, I've sized it, and I've also put tree 2 on its layer and sized it as well. Over here, or with your window info panel, I'm going to use it over here, you have a couple things that are going to be very helpful in this. If you haven't discovered this already, this is an interesting way to, or a better way to sometimes size things and position things. I am clicked on, and I'll do it first with this one. I am clicked on the first tree, the tree that's going to sort of live in the background. And what I've done is I've made it 700 by 400. That's sort of the sort of proportions it was. And I'm going to note the XY positioning of this thing. Okay, it's at 240 and 178. Okay, that's its sort of position on a an XY axis, and that's going to sort of let me line these things up correctly. Okay, so what I need, and I actually need these in a different order. I need tree. There we go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go here and I am going to remember it's 240 and 178. So I'm going to click on here and go 240, and you'll see this thing move. 178. Okay. Now let's zoom into this image. Okay. We can sort of turn one on and off. Let's see here, we have a problem with the size. Okay. Sorry, quick little change there as there's something funky with the size there. I have two trees. I have tree one, or tree, which is basically, and that was the little issue, it had gotten rid of this guy up here. They're slightly different sizes, but they line up just fine. I have this tree that has actually no background, and we can sort of turn that off and see that other one is sort of where the background is. We have tree one, we have the ball layer, and we have tree 2 here. Okay, tree 2 basically contains the background, and it's all lined up with this nicely, with this foreground on top of it and the tree on top of it. You can, if you were to have a completely different image, obviously these visuals are going to be a little bit different. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this ball layer, and I'm going to go to ball, which is the quick movie clip or animation, and that thing is just rotating. And I'm going to go to the first keyframe on the ball, and I'm going to make sure that that's that keyframe, and place that on the stage. I'm going to make this slightly, or a good deal smaller. Okay, and I'm going to sort of have him off over here. We'll have him kind of rolling on the ground a little bit. And I'm going to go up, let's just go up 100 frames or so. Let's see here. Go up to 80 frames. I'm going to control click. I'm going to insert a frame. I'm going to insert a frame. And I'm going to insert a frame here so that we have our backgrounds moving all the way up into that space. I'm going to create a simple motion tween with the ball layer. Grab him, have him off stage here, and you'll see him moving behind the tree. Okay, so we have a little bit of depth being created here. Okay, so the idea being that with a singular photograph, you can sort of split it apart, use the background in order to create depth. Depth happens if you've taken 2D design or visual arts here at Normandale. Depth can happen due to size, due to sort of overlap, and in this case it's overlap. We see depth because of the overlap. So what I'm going to do is quickly control test this movie. We see that thing rotating the wrong way. Let's quickly go to him, and we're gonna go there, rotate counterclockwise. I'm glad I made that mistake. You can sort of change whether it's going to rotate clockwise or counterclockwise. And let's take a look at him again. There we go. He's moving in the right direction now. So the idea being separating something. If I were really picky, I could go in and separate out these gray blobs in that area so that he would sort of shine through a little bit and make that even more clear that this is sort of a three-dimensional space. Okay, so be creative with the sort of juxtaposition of the real and the unreal. Hopefully that belly video, which is quite complex, is helpful in thinking about this. A lot of the sort of things that she uses in those are sort of textural things, but you'll note in various scenes there are sort of still photographs off in the distance. She actually uses video that's real with the waves, and more importantly, there's a real sort of fullness to that video where the elements such as sound really sort of tie this thing together. So try to make this very, very complete and robust. I want to see a lot of good interaction between these elements.